of all, I would like to talk about the role of women. Because many people do not have an accurate understanding of certain Bible verses, women have been oppressed in some churches. I would like to bring some clarity to certain scriptures which have been misunderstood and misused. First of all, let's look at the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 26 to 31. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created humankind in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "See, I have given you every herb that yields seed which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food. Also to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food." And it was so. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So it is clear in the creation account that both male and female are created in the image of God, and that both were given dominion by God over creation. In the creation account, there is absolutely no indication that Adam held any authority over Eve. When God created Eve, he said she would be a helper or a helpmeet for Adam, in Genesis 2, verse 18. Some have assumed that the word helper means a position of inferiority. To clarify this error of thinking, it is important to know that the same word helper, or ezer in Hebrew, E-Z-E-R, is used for God himself to describe him as our helper. An example of this is in Psalm 33, verse 20, where it says, "God is our help and our shield." Obviously, God being our helper does not make him inferior to us. Now, some people think the order of creation is an indication of rank, that Adam was in charge because he was created before Eve. However, as author Charles Tremblay highlights, I'm sure Adam knew nothing of this principle, or else he would have submitted to the animals who were created before him. Paul in the book of Corinthians addresses the question of rank. He says, "You need to learn, however, that in Christ, woman is not different from man, and man is not different from woman. Woman may come from man, but man is born of woman, and both come from God." Now, after the fall, there is the first mention of male domination. There were consequences for both the man and the woman after they rebelled. For the man, the curse or the consequence of his choice was that he would have to toil and labor and sweat in order to eat of what he grew in the ground. For the woman, God said in Genesis 3:16, "Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." The curse of male domination was definitely not what God intended for humanity. It was a tragic outcome of Adam and Eve's choice to separate themselves from the goodness of God. Tremblay provides this paraphrase to the Genesis curse. "Eve, because you have sinned, and because Adam has sinned, circumstances have changed. You'll have a desire to be with him, you'll keep turning towards him, but he'll rule you. He doesn't have my nature any longer. He's a tyrant." God was grieved that sin and pain entered the world after Adam and Eve allowed evil to enter it. And history shows that it is true that from the fall of man, women have often been oppressed, opposed, dominated, cruelly ruled, and subjugated to man's selfish gain. Another part of the Bible that has been misunderstood and very confusing for people is Paul's first letter to Timothy. In this letter, It appears that Paul says that women are not to teach or have authority over a man, and are to be silent in church gatherings. Paul also writes that women are to wear appropriate clothing, and there is a mention of women being saved in childbearing. Now, this passage seems to contradict Paul's other teachings and other biblical evidence. However, if we understand that this was indeed a letter written from one Christian leader to another in the early church, and understand the cultural context of the letter, it all then makes sense. In this letter, Paul was addressing a specific person in a specific situation at a particular time in history. Imagine reading a letter written to someone and trying to interpret it without having any knowledge about the situation it is trying to address. Then imagine the letter has been translated from a foreign language that is no longer in use today. This shows some of the difficulties associated with trying to accurately interpret Paul's letter to Timothy. Now, first we need to understand the situation Paul was trying to address. Timothy was a young pastor in the church in Ephesus. This city was home to a famous temple of a goddess known as Diana. Diana was worshipped mainly as a goddess of women, and female sexuality was celebrated in the worship of Diana. Often these celebrations took the form of erotic dance, and in some cases ritual prostitution. The goddess Diana was also worshipped as the giver of fertility and easy childbirth. Also, at this time, the practice of combining several religions into one was common and was reaching new heights. People were mixing Diana worship with the gospel of Jesus Christ. So in light of this situation, it makes sense that Paul encourages former followers and followers of Diana to dress modestly and to entrust themselves to Christ rather than looking to the goddess Diana for easy childbirths. Now, to address the verse where Paul says, "I do not permit women to have authority over a man," first we have to understand that the Greek word translated to have authority in this verse is the word authentane. And it is used only once in the entirety of the Bible in this verse. Now, the Greek word exousia has been accurately translated to have authority and is used in the New Testament 32 times. Paul did not use the word exousia here. He used the word authentane, which in Paul's time was usually used to describe something violent. In the Greek Old Testament known as the Septuagint, for example, a noun from the same word, authentas, is used to refer to people who practiced ritual murder in the worship of a false god. Now, historically, male priests in the service of the goddess known as Diana were subjected to ritual violence. Specifically, they practiced ritual castration to make themselves acceptable to her. In light of Timothy's context and a thorough study of the meaning of the word authentane during biblical times, it is very unlikely that Paul is telling Timothy that women may not exercise authority over men. It is more likely that he is warning Timothy that women should not teach or instigate ritual violence against men. His concern is not women in leadership. It is the mixing of the gospel with the worship of the goddess Diana.